Hello, everybody, and welcome to English Grammar with Ameya sir. And I promised you in the last lecture that the next lecture will be a story narration. So here we are. I'm ready with a delightful story, and it is about Vikram Vetal. It's from that Vikram Vetal series, and I'm sure that in your childhood, maybe you've already heard quite a few stories from your grandparents. And talking about grandparents, I'm going to dedicate this story session to my late grandmother, who was, in my opinion, a very expert storyteller. And I'll tell you the reason why I think she was an expert storyteller. There is a reason why I'm saying this. In the due course of time, I'll let you know why. So let's go ahead and check out the title. Of course, this is story narration 1, and you can take it as a simple story. You can take it as an audio assignment. You can take it as listening skills. You can look at it from multiple dimensions. The important thing is that you will improve your English. You will get to listen to a good story. So you may not be a state board student. You may be a CBSE student. For that matter, you might not be even a student. Someone who just wants to listen to some good English and get entertained by a good story. This could be treated as a good sample for perfect neutral Indian English. I mean it. So listen to it. Try to read it along with me because you'll have the story on your screens. Utilize it in whichever way you want to, and I have no doubt that you will enjoy this session. So what is, by the way, you can also use it as an unseen passage because there are some questions that I will ask at the end of the story. What is the name of the story? Vikram Vetal. The name of the story is Who is Her Real Husband? Who is her real husband? Before we dive into the story, one last point about the word Vetal and also about the word Vikram. Here in Maharashtra and down south, it's the V sound, Vikram and Vetal. As you go north, the V becomes the B. So it becomes Vikram Vetal. The alliteration stays. The alliteration stays. So the writer intended the alliteration. Alliteration is when the sound is repeated. So it is Vikram Vetal or Bikram Betal. But the alliteration is still there. Either the sound V or the B gets repeated. It's very common. Here you say Vyas. As you go north, you have Vyas, the river Vyas. It's actually Vyas here. But then the V becomes the B sound there. Devarshi here becomes Devarshi in Kolkata. You would have Vikram, as I said. It's a very common name here. So remember that, and that's why I'm saying Vikram Vetal. But yeah, some people would say it's Vikram Vetal. The name of the story is Who is Her Real Husband? By the way, let me read the first part. As usual, pay undivided attention so that you can maximize your learning and your enjoyment. King Vikramaditya approached the peepal tree for yet another time. He saw Vetal hanging upside down. He pulled down the corpse and started carrying him on his shoulders. Guys, here I have underlined people because you can see that the font has changed. It's in the italics. And why is that the case? Because it's a colloquial term. Colloquial term, it is a local word. It is not exactly an English word. So therefore, this is known as code mixing. Remember, this is called code mixing because there has been a use of a colloquial term. Now, your assignment is to find out the English name. I have used the word peepal tree. You tell me what the real name in English for that tree is. Alright, this is the typical start of a Vikram Vetal or Vikram Vetal story, is it not? That he is always hanging upside down. King Vikramaditya comes and starts carrying him on his shoulders. While walking, Vetal said, "Let me tell you a very interesting story to pass the time along this otherwise boring journey." And Vetal began. Guys, this is interesting English here. Look at that. Let me tell you a very interesting story to pass the time along this otherwise boring journey. So if he is saying that if I don't tell the story, it's going to be a boring journey, you carrying me to the destination. So let me tell you a story, and therefore now the story will begin. Guys, when I read the story, I will only occasionally stop for explanation, because then that will kill the fun of the story. I will read very slowly, and when I think that it is the right moment for me to comment on something, then I will stop and make the comment. Okay. So let's eventually start with what Vetal had to say. In the city of Ujjaini, there lived a merchant who had a son by the name Gandharva Sen. He was his only son. Gandharva Sen was a very handsome and intelligent young man. His way of living and behavior made him look like a prince. It was his daily routine that he would take a round of the city on his horse. You can clearly see here, very handsome Gandharva Sen from the city of Ujjaini. And he used to take a round of the city. He used to be on his horse, and his behavior, his attitude, his lifestyle made him look like a prince. Yes, he was from a well-to-do family. Not exactly a prince, but yes, he looked like a prince. And there is this first entry now that I will make. Why I say my grandmother was an expert storyteller. Whenever you tell a story, there are two kinds of listeners you will have. If you have told the story to your younger brother or anyone for that matter, you will agree with me. Number one is the category of people who would listen to your story. That's it. No questions asked. They listen and they enjoy. But then there is category number two, like me, who would question, like, why? So I remember very clearly how I used to harass her. Today, when I look back at things, I feel, I was such a bad kid. Whenever she used to start the story with something like there was a king, he had two queens, one he liked, the other one he hated. Like, why? The most common question I had, why? So similarly then, always you would find out whenever, even in this story, when we come at that particular moment, I will ask you, like, don't you have that question what I had in my mind? Why? So far, nothing extraordinary, a typical start of a typical story. But yes, in every sentence reminds me of my grandmother. Let's continue the story. So I hope you like this handsome looking young man. He was very handsome and he was very intelligent young man indeed. Many beautiful women of the city longed for him, but Gandharva Sen did not find any of them suitable for him. So many girls liked him, but Gandharva Sen was not attracted to any one of them. He thought that not one of them is suitable for me. Okay, so women used to really long for him. They used to yearn for him. Next, one day while Gandharva Sen was on his round, he came to a river bank where a number of washermen were washing clothes. She too was washing clothes. So who is she? We are talking about a beautiful young girl who was there, and Gandharva Sen immediately was attracted. Gandharva Sen became highly enamored of her beauty. Look at the English here. He was highly enamored of her beauty. She looked like a princess despite her being poor. Gandharva Sen took a deep breath and sat on the stairs of a nearby temple of goddess. He continued looking at the girl till evening, until she finally packed up and left for home accompanied by her family members. So you can clearly see that he constantly kept looking at her, and he was really attracted towards her. Then one important entry here is this word princess. And for the first time, I'm actually going to take you to the notepad for this one. Why? Guys, this versus this is the discussion. So if you are talking about PRINCES, you're talking about the plural of prince. So I will write it down as plural of prince. And if you are looking at This word princess, that's the feminine. That is the daughter of the king. So remember the difference. Princess, many princess, and princess is the daughter of the king. Always remember. Remember that in the story she looked like a princess. She wasn't a princess. She looked like a princess. So there was a temple. Gandharva Sen was there waiting and looking at her all the time. Finally she packed and she left. And of course Gandharva Sen was sad. Let's see what happens next. Gandharva Sen was so deeply enchanted by her beauty that he almost became crazy when he saw her leaving the ghat. He continued looking at her until she vanished from his sight. Guys, this word here is ghat. Okay? Do not pronounce it as ghat. In English, there is no gh sound. When you are doing it in English, always remember it's the g sound. Okay? Like Ganesha, g sound. Okay? Ghat, Western Ghats, or the ghost. It's not ghost. In English, there is no g sound. It's ghost. Remember that. It's a ghetto. It's not a ghetto. Ghetto. There is no g sound in English. It's ghost. And similarly, over here you should say ghat, Western Ghat. There is no g sound when you use it in English. Of course, you will have noticed that the font has changed. So it's in italics. I told you that this is an example, yet another example of code mixing. Now, after the girl had gone, Gandharva Sen got up from the stairs with a heavy heart and went inside the temple. There he stood before the idol of the goddess and pledged, "Oh goddess, if I get married to this girl within a month, I will sacrifice my head at your feet." What did he say? One more time. "Oh goddess, if I get married to this girl within a month, I will sacrifice my head at your feet." And this is where the child within me would ask my grandmother, why? You love her, right? So why would you make such a pledge? Why will you pledge that if I do get this girl within a month, I will sacrifice my life? Shouldn't it be the other way around? That if I don't get her, then there is a chance that I might kill myself. Although even then it would be wrong, but then still makes sense. Why would the prince, not the prince, but Gandharva Sen pledge something like this? If I get the girl, then I will sacrifice myself. Don't you want to live with her the rest of your life, buddy, if you get her? That's the kind of question that I always used to ask my grandmother. And now you will realize why I say she was expert. Because of this constant interruption. And she used to still patiently explain it to me. At one point of time, my grandmother used to be irritated. And she used to say, hey, she used to say it in Marathi. I'm just saying this in English. My story, my characters, my narration. Take it or leave it. And then I used to be like, okay, I don't want to leave it. I want to listen to it. So I used to try to shut up until the next query. Let me know if you are that kind of listener or you are of the first category where you used to be very quiet during the story and never asked any question. Let me know in the comments. I used to ask this question. Why would the prince make, not the prince, why would Gandharva Sen make such a pledge? If I get the girl, I will sacrifice myself. Why? Anyway, her story, her character, continue. No questions. Alright, continue. Saying so, Gandharva Sen came out of the temple, mounted his horse and returned home in a very sad mood. Obviously, he was very sad, guys. He reached home and fell on his divan. That's a bad, guys. He was in a very emotional state. He could not forget the beautiful face of the girl even for a single moment. He locked himself in a room and isolated himself for several days. Guys, in the current situation and context of the COVID-19, let it be said that he didn't isolate himself because he quarantined himself because he was a COVID tested positive. This is because he did not want any worldly transactions. He was so enchanted by her beauty that he could not bear the fact that he was far away from her. So he needed her. Okay, that's the thing. He locked himself in a room and isolated himself for several days. Okay, continue. Gandharvasen's condition deteriorated and his parents started to worry. Of course, obviously, your parents will begin to worry like, what the heck? Why is he behaving this way? Is something wrong? They could not figure out the reason behind his grief. Figure out is trying to find out. Okay, they could not figure out the reason behind his grief. Grief is sadness. Even the physicians failed to diagnose his ailment. Guys, this is not ailment. This is ailment, meaning what you're suffering from. So the physicians, the doctors were called, and even they could not diagnose what the problem was. Obviously, there was no medical condition here. The boy is in love. So they failed to diagnose what's wrong. The parents were clearly worried because what's happened to their only son. Finally, they sent for his best friend, Devdatta. Now, sent for means called. Guys, very important. Please understand how beautifully the story has been written. I've tried my best to present you the vocabulary, the idiom, the phrases, everything. They sent for his best friend, and the name of the best friend is Devadatta. So now, what has happened in the story is that Gandharvasen's parents have called Devadatta, who's the best friend, and they asked him, just look at your friend, what's wrong with him? Our only son, we cannot watch him like this. Try to find out what's wrong. We called the doctors, they found nothing wrong. He's clearly sad, he's isolated himself. What is the reason? I'm sure Devadatta, being a good friend, will do something. Let's find out. So what happened after Devadatta arrived? Devadatta was alarmed to see the condition of his best friend. He was what? He was alarmed. This is our character Devadatta. He persuaded Gandharvasen to tell him everything. Guys, you know that you normally confide in your friends, don't you? There are things you will tell your friends. You'll open up, you probably tell them everything that is stored in their heart, what you're probably not comfortable telling your parents at times. So clearly Devadatta asked him, don't hide anything from me, tell me everything. And of course, Gandharvasen will tell Devadatta everything. Now the story is getting interesting, is it not? What happened next? By the way, the word is persuaded. Make someone do something. What's the meaning of persuaded, guys? Make someone do something. That's persuade. Okay. So Devadatta found out who the girl was. So he found out more about the girl. He understood everything. Her name was Roopmati, and he put forth Gandharvasen's marriage proposal in front of her parents. So clearly Devadatta is such a good friend. He found out what was wrong, and he found out more about the girl. So he found out that the name of the girl is Roopmati, and he immediately sent a proposal on behalf of Gandharvasen, and I'm sure her parents would love that. And we'll find out if that proposal got accepted or rejected. Let's find out. Roopmati's parents were delighted with the proposal. After all, their daughter will be married to someone from a wealthy family. Roopmati too was very happy. She had too liked Gandharvasen but had not openly expressed her love towards him. Yet another time when I would ask my grandmother, why? Why in your stories doesn't the girl ever reveal her feelings? Then I was just a child. I wondered why it is every time an indirect thing. Why doesn't the girl say what she has in her mind to her parents, to her brother? Why? So clearly questions upon questions. And also I asked her one thing. Is it like the wealthy guys always get good girls? I asked her this as a child. Clearly then my concern was valid, because in all her stories the kings used to get beautiful women. The wealthy merchants had the beautiful wives. I asked her this question. Well, that's not the reality, though I know now. But look at the interruptions. So anyway, back to the story. Her characters, her story. So let's continue. So clearly so far we have seen, guys, that even Roopmati was in love with not Devdatta, Gandharva Sen, and now they would probably be married, and the story is now building up to the point where something is going to happen. We watch a lot of Hindi movies, you know what. Then on an auspicious day, Roopmati was married to Gandharva Sen. I thought so. That's happened. Gandharva Sen considered himself as the happiest man on the earth. So that's a superlative degree. He considered that he was the happiest man on the earth, clearly because he got his girl. And they both loved each other so much that they could not tolerate even a moment's separation. Ooh, too much, right? Too much, right? They loved each other so much that they could not tolerate even a moment's separation from each other. Fantastic, so lucky, fantastic. So the rings were exchanged, the garlands were exchanged, and more than a month went by in this way. Then one day, Gandharva Sen suddenly recollected his pledge that he had made before the goddess. So now was the time to fulfill his promise. And now, guys, now you know why I asked this question. There was foresight. Now what? You made such a stupid pledge, and now it is time to fulfill that pledge. You got the girl, and what did you promise? That if you got the girl, you will sacrifice yourself. Okay, go, enjoy. So now, whenever I remember, the interruptions are also like, Grandma, did I not tell you? Why? Again, she used to be like, shush. That's what probably you're telling me now. One entry before we go ahead is with the word fulfill. Let's go back to the slide. The word is fulfill, F-U-L-F-I-L, and I'm going to take you to the notepad because I want you to understand the difference between the British English and the American English. So here, F-U-L-F-I-L is Indian English. I would say Indian English. And F-U-L-F-I-L-L would be American. So please remember the difference. It's the same difference when you have words like color with C-O-L-O-R, American, and C-O-L-O-U-R, which is the Indian or the British English. There is always this difference. So notice that in our PPT, the spelling used was Indian, F-U-L-F-I-L, fulfill his promise. Let's get back to the story. Gandharva Sen arrived at the temple accompanied by his wife and his best buddy Devdatta. Buddy is the best friend. He had not told those two about his pledge. Guys, now imagine the shock that they are going to get. Who? Devdatta and Roopmati, because they are not aware why they are at the temple. Gandharva Sen asked Roopmati and Devdatta to wait outside, and he himself went inside the temple. And now, guys, there inside the temple, Gandharva Sen first offered his prayers before the goddess and then sacrificed himself, cutting off his head with his sword. Sad, right? You know, there used to be moments when I used to be sad listening to the stories from Grandma. Like, dude, why did you have to do that? You should not have pledged something like this. Look what happened now. And by the way, now the English teacher inside me right now wants to remind you that it's sword. It's not sword, it is sword. This W here is silent. You must not say sword, you must say sword. That is the pronunciation. When Gandharva Sen did not come out of the temple for a long time, both Roopmati and Devdatta got worried. Devdatta went inside the temple to look for Gandharva Sen. So clearly, guys, some time must have gone by and they were waiting outside the temple, and seldom, I mean, hardly did they have any clue. There was any chance that they knew what was going to happen now, what they were going to witness. So after a long time, I am sure that Roopmati must have asked Devdatta to just kindly go and look why your friend hasn't come back. It's been a long while now. So now Devdatta would go inside. Guys, can I ask you to predict now what will happen? Unless you already know the story. Please be honest about it. I used to be curious. I used to make my own endings and be disappointed when the end was different as told by my grandma. Let's continue. Devadatta is inside the temple now and he will find out now what has happened. To his horror, Devadatta found his friend's body with his head cut off lying on the altar. He simply could not understand why Gandharva Sen did that. Look at the reaction. Oh no. Guys, imagine what a horrendous sight that must have been for Devadatta. He would never have expected such a thing. I mean, he just went inside to see why, what's happened. Why has my friend not come back? Much to his horror, what did he see? He saw that his friend has done that and he could not understand why he did that. But now is the problem. Now there's a problem. Now Devadatta thought something to himself. I'm sure Devadatta is thinking what even you are thinking. If I go out, people would suspect that I have killed Gandharva Sen. There is only one way out. Guys, now clearly Devadatta thinks that if I go outside and tell Roopmati that your beloved husband has killed himself, he's just cut his head off, there is every chance that Roopmati might think that you have done it, Devadatta, is it not? So he thought that there is only one way out. And now, as a child, when my grandmother, when she said the next part, which is coming up, I used to again ask that question, why? Okay, sure you would also ask that. What happens? So to prove his innocence, Devadatta too drew out his sword and cut off his own head as well. Why? He should have told the truth, right? But no. He also drew out his sword and he also cut his head off. By the way, the past tense of cut is cut. Don't say he cutted. He cut his head off as well. Why? I used to look at I remember I used to stop my grandma and look at her. Like, 2 killings here in your story? Sure, right? Why are people in your story doing that? Her story, her rules. Let's continue. I'm sure you are interested now to know what's going to happen next. So, the goddess made an earthly appearance, realizing the immense faith of her devotees. She joined the 2 severed heads with the headless bodies. Guys, always in my grandmother's story, you had to believe in miracles. You definitely got to see the powers of the Almighty. And I have no doubt actually that you must have also suspected something like this. Be honest about it. And now the goddess has, come, made an earthly appearance. And clearly, by the way, in the last slide, the word was altar. A-L-T-A-R is altar. Because at the temple you have this platform upon which you pray. You offer the, you keep the flowers, you keep the coconut, you keep the diya, or maybe you just bow down. So that particular thing is the altar. So she made an earthly appearance, and the goddess is also really shocked to see what has happened. She actually did not want that to be the case because she loved the immense faith that her devotees had. Remember, Gandharva Sen had just made an oral promise. He could have not done that, but he thought that he should honor the commitment. And that's why the goddess had to come out and make an earthly appearance. And so what she did was she joined the bodies. Severed. Wasn't that the word, guys? The word was severed. Look at this. S-E-V-E-R-E-D. Severed. What does that mean? Cut with a slice or with a blade or something like that. Severed head. She joined the severed heads with the headless bodies. That's what the goddess did. I appreciate the commitment shown by Gandharva Sen, but what's the point? He's dead now. But in the process, the wrong face got joined. That is, head of Gandharva Sen got connected with the body of Devdatta and that of Devdatta with that of Gandharva Sen. Guys, I want you to clearly appreciate the English language as to how to put forward your ideas in correct English. Very important. What has happened? Wrong face, wrong body. That's happened. How do you put that idea across in good English? You say, what has happened is, in the process, the wrong face got joined. That is, head of Gandharva Sen got connected with the body of Devdatta and that of Devdatta with that of Gandharva Sen. So clearly you can see in the image how funny they look. And again, you know what I must have asked my grandmother, is it not? Why? Like, she is a goddess, right? Why? Even mistake in her work. But anyway, her story, her rules. That's happened. That's happened. And now clearly you see that how funny they look. You see that the torso is of Gandharva Sen, but the face is Devdatta, and the torso here, the body of Devdatta, but the head of Gandharva Sen. So clearly that has happened. You can imagine the plight of Roopmati when they must have walked out like that. I have no doubt that she must have fallen unconscious twice or thrice, looking at what she saw. Like, what? Are you serious? You got to be kidding me. I mean, what is this? Imagine her plight. And that, I think, is the question that, as usual, towards the end, Vetal must have asked Vikram. Let's find out, guys. Before we do that, there is a grammar entry. Look at the slide, guys. There's this Latin word, that is. Look at this entry, guys. That is. These are the Latin terms, and I want to take you to the notepad. You should jot them down. Of course, you can pause and do it later. That is. Now, that is what we say, is it not? We say it is that is, but the actual full form is idest. Guys, please note this. That is idest, and that is the Latin language. The other examples that I want to share with you, e.g., example. Guys, we say it as example, but there is a G there. And please be honest, is this the first time that you are learning this? Has it not crossed your mind that example is E-X-A-M-P-L-E? What is that G doing there? I'm sure you've asked this question, right? That's because it is a Latin term. So you write it as E-G, but the full form, the actual thing is exempli gratia. Again, that is Latin. And that is why you say E-G. You write it as E-G, exempli gratia. Guys, the other word is etc. Okay? Etc. That's exactly how it is, guys. Again, Latin in origin. And now I'm going to share with you a beautiful example. The last one is beautiful. By the way, I should take you to the notepad. I'm sorry, I was on the screen here. Etc. And the last one that I want to share with you is, what's that? Is this. Guys, NO is a number, is it not? We always write it as NO, but I'm sure that you also have found it very intriguing, like NUMBER. NUMBER, number. But why do we write it in short as NO? Leave it in the comments if this was interesting. Have you ever thought about this? Number is spelled NUMBER. Why? What is that O doing there? And everybody will put it in short as NO. And everybody will read it as number. Why O? Here is the answer. Because it's a Latin term. That's why you write it as NO. Let me take you to the notepad. So actually you say it as number, but the Latin word for that is numero. Guys, it is numero or numero. That's why you write it as N-O. Guys, 100% I want to know from you, whenever I share such pieces of information with you, I would love to know if that was interesting and that was something that you really learned, because education also has to happen. Meanwhile, back to the story. Now before, that's why I took a big pause here to explain this, and now I have a question for you. Can you guess what Vetal must have asked Vikram, guys? You have? Find out whether that's exactly what you had in mind here. Okay? Let's go to the next one. What's going to happen now, guys? Now tell me, said Vetal to Vikramaditya, whom should Roopmati choose as her husband? Give an excellent experience of your fine sense of judgment, else I shall break your head into pieces. Now, 100%, I am sure that you also thought of this, that Vetal must have asked Vikram the same question. Now, whom should Roopmati, choose as her husband? Because clearly there is a mismatch. And one more thing, as usual, I must have asked my grandmother, why? How come Vetal, becomes so powerful that he can break Vikramaditya's skull? If he was so powerful in the first place, how did Vikramaditya get hold of him? Reasonable question, right? Reasonable question, right? Every time King Vikramaditya would come and carry him off on his shoulders, if he was capable of doing that, then what is this audacity that Vetal shows every time that answer my question, otherwise I will break your skull? If you were so powerful, what are you doing on his shoulder? Anyway, sure you are now beginning to realize that my grandmother must have shown lot of patience telling a child like me a story. But you know what? Lovely. Good experience. And now, Vikramaditya's answer, guys. King Vikramaditya thought for a moment and said, Roopmati should accept the face of Gandharva Sen as her husband. So clearly, guys, Vikramaditya is saying that the one with Devdatta's body but Gandharva Sen's face should be acting or be chosen as the husband. Did you also answer the same? Be honest. Be honest. Did you answer the same? Let me know in the comments. Let's get back to the story. Vetal reminded him that the body was that of Devdatta. So Vetal clearly raised apprehension, like, why are you saying that? The body was of Devdatta. But King Vikramaditya said, that does not matter. That does not matter. Face is the ultimate identity of a person. It is the face which carries a name and is recognized for nearly all intents and purposes as the individual himself or herself. What a fine sense of judgment, is it not? It is the face that gives us our identity. Guys, always remember, the face is your identity, and that's a fact. Imagine whenever the police arrests a suspect, or the police arrest a suspect, because police is they always hide the face. They don't bother hiding everything, putting him under a burqa. The hiding of that face is important. They do that. So when you hide your face, you hide yourself, because that is your identity. So King Vikramaditya gave the judgment that Roopmati must accept the face of Gandharva Sen as her husband from now on. Do you agree with it? Okay. Next one. You are absolutely right, Vikram, said Vetal, but I am sorry. Since you have broken your silence, I will now abandon your company and fly away to my abode. Guys, abode is your shelter, your home, your habitat. And remember, a few lectures ago, we did talk about this word company, not company. company. So he is saying, I will now abandon your company and fly away to my abode. So again, Vetal is off to his graveyard or his cemetery, wherever the people tree where he used to stay. And by the way, let's continue. Saying thus, Vetal flew away and King Vikramaditya started chasing him yet again. So for one more time, King Vikramaditya was chasing him and will catch hold of him again until the next story. Well, there will be a next story. Now here is what I have in my mind. I have already told you that there are questions that I have for you. So treat it like an unseen passage as well. That's also a very good idea. But now there is something really interesting. Throughout the story, I took so many pauses because I had to explain you the things as well. It is now from this point that people can treat it as a speaking practice or comprehension practice, because now I am going to read the entire story without a single pause, I promise. There will be no entry by me. There will be no grammatical explanation. I have done whatever I had to say. And if there is something more, I promise I will put it at the end, after the story is over. So from now on, give me your undivided attention so that you are also able to enjoy this complete story without any interruption. After that, we will go ahead and see the questions. And if there is anything else that I have to share with you regarding the story or make a grammatical explanation, I will do that. Okay, so just let's go back to the start of this particular story and we will start reading it, and I will do it without any pause, I promise. Let me take you to the story. Guys, can I start? Please enjoy this, okay? Enjoy the Indian accent. Enjoy the fluent reading. I promise I will try to do my best. Pardon if I go wrong somewhere. King Vikramaditya approached the peepal tree for yet another time. He saw Vetal hanging upside down. He pulled down the corpse and started carrying him on his shoulders. While walking, Vetal said, "Let me tell you a very interesting story to pass the time along this otherwise boring journey." And Vetal began. In the city of Ujjaini, there lived a merchant who had a son by the name Gandharva. He was his only son. Gandharva was a very handsome and intelligent young man. His way of living and behavior made him look like a prince. It was his daily routine that he would take a round of the city on his horse. Many beautiful women of the city longed for him, but Gandharva did not find any of them suitable for him. One day, while Gandharva was on his round, he came to a river bank where a number of washermen were washing clothes. She too was washing clothes. Gandharva became highly enamored of her beauty. She looked like a princess, despite her being poor. Gandharva took a deep breath and sat on the stairs of a nearby temple of goddess. He continued looking at the girl till evening, until she finally packed up and left for home accompanied by her family members. Gandharva was so deeply enchanted by her beauty that he almost became crazy when he saw her leaving the ghat. He continued looking at her until she vanished from his sight. After the girl had gone, Gandharva got up from the stairs with a heavy heart and went inside the temple. There he stood before the idol of the goddess and pledged, "O goddess, if I get married to this girl within a month, I will sacrifice my head at your feet." Saying so, Gandharva came out of the temple, mounted his horse, and returned home in a very sad mood. He reached home and fell on his divan. He was in a very emotional state. He could not forget the beautiful face of the girl even for a single moment. He locked himself in a room and isolated himself for several days. Gandharvasen's condition deteriorated and his parents started to worry. They could not figure out the reason behind his grief. Even the physicians failed to diagnose his ailment. Finally, they sent for his best friend Devdatta. Devdatta was alarmed to see the condition of his best friend. He persuaded Gandharvasen to tell him everything. Devdatta found out who the girl was. Her name was Roopmati, and he put forth Gandharvasen's marriage proposal in front of her parents. Roopmati's parents were delighted with the proposal. After all, their daughter will be married to someone from a wealthy family. Roopmati too was very happy. She had too liked Gandharvasen but had not openly expressed her love towards him. Then, on an auspicious day, Roopmati was married to Gandharvasen. Gandharvasen considered himself as the happiest man on the earth, and they both loved each other so much that they could not tolerate even a moment's separation. More than a month went by in this way. Then, one day, Gandharvasen suddenly recollected his pledge that he had made before the goddess. So now was the time to fulfill his promise. Gandharvasen arrived at the temple accompanied by his wife and his best buddy Devdatta. He had not told those two about his pledge. Gandharvasen asked Roopmati and Devdatta to wait outside, and he himself went inside the temple. There, inside the temple, Gandharvasen first offered his prayers before the goddess and then sacrificed himself, cutting off his head with his sword. When Gandharvasen did not come out of the temple for a long time, both Roopmati and Devdatta got worried. Devdatta went inside the temple to look for Gandharvasen. To his horror, Devdatta found his friend's body with his head cut off lying on the altar. He simply could not understand why Gandharvasen did that. Oh no! If I go out, people would suspect that I have killed Gandharvasen. There is only one way out. So, to prove his innocence, Devdatta too drew out his sword and cut off his own head as well. The goddess made an earthly appearance, realizing the immense faith of her devotees. She joined the two severed heads with the headless bodies. But in the process, the wrong face got joined. That is, head of Gandharvasen got connected with the body of Devdatta and that of Devdatta with that of Gandharvasen. Now tell me, said Vetal to Vikramaditya, whom should Roopmati choose as her husband? Give an excellent experience of your fine sense of judgment, else I shall break your head into pieces. King Vikramaditya thought for a moment and said, Roopmati should accept the face of Gandharvasen as her husband. Vetal reminded him that the body was that of Devdatta. But King Vikramaditya said, that does not matter. Face is the ultimate identity of a person. It is the face which carries a name and is recognized for nearly all intents and purposes as the individual himself or herself. You are absolutely right, Vikram, said Vetal. But I am sorry. Since you have broken your silence, I will now abandon your company and fly away to my abode. Saying thus, Vetal flew away and King Vikramaditya started chasing him yet again. The end. Okay guys, so I hope that you also thoroughly enjoyed the reading part of the story. I went wrong I think a couple of times while reading it, but that was because of the transition of the slide, something going on in my head about the questions to be asked. But overall, I'm sure that it must have been a good experience. First assignment for you is to actually watch this video again later whenever you have time with the voice muted, and actually read it along with the slides. Okay, so I hope towards the end of the video, the way I did it, go to that part, then mute the video and then try to do it. Now we will go on to the questions. It is here that I want you to do it as your homework and do the questions sincerely, jot them down. I'm going to actually take you to the notepad so that we can jot down the questions one by one. Okay. So let me take you to the notepad straight away because we are going to deal this as comprehension. By the way, should I give you a minute, guys, for this purpose? For jotting down everything that was already here in a notepad? Should I give you a minute for that? I think it is better you pause the video on this screen if you want to jot down these things. At the moment, kindly allow me to just go ahead and make a note of the questions. So questions based on the passage. So here now you could treat it as your unseen passage. I would not follow the pattern exactly for the board, but these are general questions. Okay, so the question number 1 is name and explain all the characters in the story. What is it? Name and explain all the characters in the story. That's your first question, guys. Name and explain all the characters in the story. Now, I want you also to include Vikram Vetal. Don't just look at the story that I narrated. So, even Vikram Vetal can be included. And please write something about those characters. Like, for example, if you're writing about Devdatta, for example, you should say Devdatta, friend of Gandharva Sen or something like that. Best buddy of Gandharva Sen, something like that about the character. So I hope that this is very clear. The next question I want to ask you is, what should I ask you? There's something interesting here, is it not? Okay, I will ask you this. Find and explain all the examples of code mixing. Well, that will be a good question. Guys, I told you what was code mixing. So find and explain all the examples of code mixing. And here is something important. Those who take pride, boast about their listening skills. Here is something for you. Can you give all the words without going back to the video? You've heard the story now twice. Do you recollect all the words? If yes, that is awesome listening skills. I'm telling you. I'll praise you seriously if that's the case. But otherwise, go back to the story and then do this question. So what's the question here? Let me take you to the notepad. The question I want to ask you guys is find and explain all the examples of code mixing. Guys, if you remember code mixing, use of colloquial terms which are not originally English. Colloquial terms. For example, Panditji, Ustad, Guru, those words that you use are examples of code mixing. So try to give all the examples of code mixing. Back to the notepad. The third question. What can I ask you as a third question? This has to be one of the questions. I'll take that as a third question. Do you agree with the judgment of King Vikramaditya that he said that Roopmati should choose the head of Gandharva Sen as the husband? Do you agree with it? Well, there can be distinct opinions. Number 1, yes, you agree. Number 2, you would say no, you don't agree. Number 3, you would say that she should have abandoned both, and she should have, because clearly there would be confusion, so she should have chosen someone else. Boys, don't try choose me. Okay, so do you agree with it is the question. Let me take you to the notepad. I will type the question again for you. What was the question? It's a personal response. Personal response. Do you agree with King Vikramaditya's King Vikramaditya's judgment, and why? Guys, you have to expatiate, okay? You cannot just stop at yes or no. You have to specify. Why do you think what you think? Next question, please. What can be the next question, guys? What can I ask you? The next question. Find out from, oh, the words from the passage. Clearly, I can do that. Words from the passage. I have prepared some questions for you already. Let's write them down. A flat surface to offer prayers. A flat surface to offer prayers at a temple. That's what I want you to find first. Let me take you to the notepad. That's my first question for you. What's my next one? Spellbound or charmed? That's the second word I want you to find. Guys, these are the meanings. I want you to find what word was used in the passage for these meanings, okay? The third one is very good, favorable. Very good, favorable, or showing goodness. And I'm going to add one more here. Opportune time. What was the word which means all of these things? Guys, this is nice. And last one is, well, there will be more, right? Let's not make it last. Let's write it down. Placed apart. Separated. Guys, make a note of this word separated, guys. S-E-P-A-R-A-T-E-D. Separated is not S-E-P-E. It is S-E-P-A-R-A-T-E-D. It's like separated, but you say separated. Very important, guys. One more word is home, shelter, or habitat. During the explanation, guys, I definitely used this word. Home, shelter, habitat. What was the word for this? There's a grammar entry, guys. What's a grammar entry? Gandharva Sen was, you remember the qualities? Guys, what were the qualities? Gandharva Sen was an intelligent, he was intelligent and a handsome young man. That's who he was. Now you would be required to rewrite using not only but also. Rewrite this using not only but also. And now there is an interesting assignment as homework apart from what you have to write. Here is what you have to do. Or let me write it. It's better if you just write it, guys. Here is your sixth homework. Record the story and send it to me as an audio file. You can do that on WhatsApp if you have my number. You can send it as an email, as a video, audio file. You could, what are the other ways? No, that's it. That's it. So these are the two ways that you can record and send me your story. Guys, this is such a nice homework. Why is this a nice homework? Here is why. If I find a recording so interesting, I promise I will play it on the channel. I promise you that. So here is your chance. My students, grab this with both the hands, this opportunity. If you read it, and I have no problem in admitting that when I was reading it, I went wrong a couple of times because of the slight transition, but no excuse, I went wrong twice. So if you can record a very interesting story, narration, whatever, you can send it to me, and if it is flawless, if it is that good, I promise that I will play it on the lecture next time. So you will be heard by everybody. I promise you that. Okay, you can make a video recording as well, I don't care. Sure. So you can send it to me on WhatsApp if you know my number, or if not, then you can definitely send it to me as an audio file. You can email it to me. Now here in the scroller, guys, you definitely have my email ID. You definitely send it to me. That's it, guys. I think we have approached an hour of the recording. I completed my promise of bringing you a story. Let me know how the experience was, and if you have loved it, I will bring yet another story for you. For the moment, it is time for us to stop. Do your homework. I'm looking for interesting answers here. Up until next time, as I always say, stay at home. It's just the times of the pandemic. Do not venture outside unnecessarily. Take good care. Okay. Keep learning English. We will meet again soon. Okay.